managing your workforce can be quite difficult and time-consuming, with complications such as absence, overtime rules, buddy punching, and compliance with legislation like the Affordable Care Act, Family and Medical Leave Act, and the Fair Labor Standards Act. Managing these employees and ensuring accurate time and attendance records can be a daunting task. We offer a complete SaaS-based time and labor management application that gives you information and automation tools you need when you need them to help control and reduce your labor costs. With our application, you can streamline your time tracking with automated collection of time and attendance information, conversion of work hours to payroll, and enforce your pay and work rules by knowing who is doing what and when. The solution goes a step further with comprehensive self-service capabilities. By enabling employees and managers to automate time-off requests, change cost centers, update timesheets, and in general communicate openly, allowing you to effectively reduce the burden on yourself or HR staff to help execute these functions while empowering staff to take charge of their time and attendance and providing managers with real-time visibility. And with all of this data, it's important that you be able to pull the reports that you need when you need them to gain a deeper insight into the workforce trends. Our solution's robust reporting has both standard and ad hoc reporting, which offers an almost unlimited number of ways to create your own reports using advanced filtering or custom columns. Reports can even be exported into just about any format that you want. And the solution is scalable, so depending on where your business is at, from the size and complexity perspective, we offer either small business or a mid-market option. The solution's versatility allows it to conform to exactly the requirements you need to have met for your specific business on a budget that you're comfortable with. With that said, let's jump in and take a look at the time and labor management application. We will begin by looking at some of the functionality that employees typically have access to. Then we will move on to taking a look at the system from the manager's perspective, and we will wrap up with taking a look at the system from the administrator's point of view. Now, there are a variety of ways that punches can be collected and recorded onto an employee's timesheet. For example, we have several hardware devices, which include simple swipe, biometric, and handheld devices such as the mobile app. And then, of course, there is a traditional entry using the web as well. And we do have 10 different timesheet formats available, so let's begin by taking a look at a couple of the more popular timesheet formats. First, I'm going to log in as Ashley to show you the timestamp timesheet. This is the strictest of all of the timesheet formats that we have available. It uses a server time, which can be found here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and the server time will adjust for the different time zones. Employees can clock in and out using these buttons here on the top of the screen, and by clicking on the Change Task button, she will have a predetermined list to choose from. We can see that the system has automatically clocked the user out of one task and into the next one. Now you can label this button to fit your needs, so if you wanted to track department or cost center, you could do that as well. Keep in mind that the configuration of each format is flexible, so you can determine how many days or weeks to display on the timesheet. You can determine if work time can span midnight, or even how long to assume a missing punch. So in our case, we're looking at 1 day at a time, and you can review the timesheet total hours here at the bottom of the timesheet. You can also make available a yellow sticky note where employees can enter notes to their manager about their timesheet. And once a note has been entered, an email notification can be generated to go out to their manager, who can review the note and take any necessary action. Now let's say that Ashley would like to print her timesheet. She can access this functionality under the Utilities button on the bottom navigation bar. From here, she can also view her schedule or review her time off balances. Next, I will log in as Casey Jones to show you an example of the Start-Stop timesheet format. This format is using the honor system concept. It allows the employees to track their start and stop times by day, department, project, or any other units of measure. This timesheet format does not rely on the server time, but instead the employee can freely enter in their time. So let's take a look at an example. We'll clock her out of the first project and into the second one. The system also allows an employee to allocate dollar amounts to specific categories and can include this information within the system. So as an example, let's say that Casey goes to an offsite meeting with a client and needs to stop along the way for gas. Casey can allocate her expenses here under the Extra Pay tab. So from here we can see that she would be able to assign her expenses to a specific department or client, and then she can choose from the appropriate pay category, and this list is completely configurable. Then she would be able to enter in the dollar amount for this expense. And then in addition to simply tracking those expenses, Casey can upload a copy of her gas receipt to keep the whole process paperless. And lastly, this entry can also be set up so that it must be approved by a manager during the timesheet approval process. Now that we have reviewed a few different timesheet formats, let's take a look at how an employee would go about requesting time off. Employees can request time off through our system using our automated time off tool. Casey can access her time off request tool from the menu options up above. All of the employee self-service functions are made available here under the My Account tab. The Request Time Off screen contains three parts: the Request tool, the time off balances, and a list of all of the recent requests. Let's select a day of vacation for our example. We can then choose the date by selecting from one of the following: a full day, where the employee would just select the calendar date; partial day start-stop, which is where the employee would select the calendar date, but then need to enter in a from time and a to time; partial day bulk, which is where the employee would select the calendar date, but then specify the total number of hours that they will be out for that day; or the employee may request off in multiple day increments. So for our purposes, let's choose a full day. Then the system may be configured to require that a comment be added. So let's say that we're going to be making it a long weekend. Now once this request has been submitted, an email notification can be generated to go out to the manager, prompting them to log into the system and review the request. Under the Balances window, the color coding feature alerts approvers whether the employee has authorized time available. If enough time is authorized, a pending request would be reflected in green. If not, the requested time off would appear in red. You can also prevent a request from going through if it were to bring an employee into the negative balance. I also want to mention that the system can easily be configured to enable blackout dates and prevent an employee from even being able to request time off during those predetermined blackout dates. Now let's move on to looking at the system from more of a manager's perspective. To do this, we're going to log in as Jack, the manager of our company. You'll notice that Jack has a dashboard screen enabled. Keep in mind, each dashboard can be configured to meet each individual user's needs. So in this case, Jack's dashboard is geared more towards his managerial duties and puts all of the information that he needs to know about his employees right here at his fingertips. As you can see, he has a window enabled which will display all of the time off requests that are still pending approval. He also has a list of quick links that will take him to the items that he accesses most frequently. He can also view a dot board to see who's in the office and out of the office at any given point throughout the day. The blue pin represents that the employee is clocked out, and the red pin indicates that the employee is clocked in. This information is available in real time if the employees are clocking in using the web or an Ethernet device. He also has the ability to keep track of exceptions such as who's tardy or absent, and this report is color-coded for easy identification. And if anybody does have a missing punch, that can also be displayed on the dashboard where a manager can drill down into that employee's timesheet to make a correction. Now let's close out a few of the open items that we started on the employee side, such as approving the time off. So as you can see, the time off request that we submitted for Casey is being displayed right here on the dashboard. As the manager, Jack needs to understand a few things in order to make a more informed decision as to whether or not Casey should get her time off approved. So with that said, first, Jack can click on what looks like the hourglass icon. And from here, he can see if Casey has a positive balance. Now remember, we have the color coding feature, so this is an easy way for the manager to identify if the employee has a positive balance. So now that Jack knows that Casey does have enough time authorized for this request, he will need to find out if there are any other employees out on the same day that Casey is requesting off. So for this, he can turn to the Date Requested column. So from here, he'll be able to see if there are any other employees authorized off on the same day that Casey is requesting. So in this case, there are 2 employees already authorized off on that day, indicated with the 2 in parentheses. The date is a hyperlink which will allow Jack to drill down and see who those other employees are. So now Jack can make a more informed decision as to whether he should let Casey have the day off. I will approve the request by clicking on the green flag, and then the system will prompt me for a comment. So we'll simply put in, "Have fun." And now the status of this request will be sent back to the employee through an email notification. So we have closed the requesting time off cycle. Now let's move on to taking a look at how the manager would review and approve the timesheets. So first we want to check to see if there are any missing punches before we approve the timesheets. So an easy way of identifying a missing punch is to include this information on the dashboard. So as we can see, Ashley has a missing punch, and we can drill down into her timesheet from here. We'll notice that Ashley did not clock out at the end of the day. However, she did leave us a note, which is indicated here with a green check mark over the note icon. In this case, it seems that the employee left at 3 p.m., so we'll enter that information on her timesheet. Keep in mind that the system is capturing all of the details around this in an audit trail. So it will include the old value, the new value, who made the change, when the change was made, and even the IP address that it was made from. That way, if there's any sort of discrepancy, you can always look back to that audit trail. So back on the previous screen, we can see that there are no longer any missing punches, so we can move forward with approving the timesheets. So to do this, we can access our timesheets listed here under the quick links under the Manage Timesheets Pending Approval. So this is the screen that Jack will use to review items such as the raw time, the regular hours, as well as the overtime hours. And this will bring up all of the timesheets that Jack needs to approve. So the manager has the ability to approve them all at once or individually, and we can approve them all at once by using the green flag here on the bottom of this screen. So once this is approved, the timesheet will be passed on to the next approver, and there are up to 5 levels of workflow available for the timesheet approval process. Now you have probably come across a situation where a manager is out sick or on vacation or even out on maternity leave. And when this happens, how do you handle who's going to be taking over the approval responsibilities? Well, in our system, we can easily assign a backup manager for the time frame that you define using effective dating so that the workflow is not interrupted. So to do this, I need to log in as Kathy, the company administrator, and I need to edit the group permissions. So what we're looking at here is a screen where you can define who manages whom. So if we take Jack as our example, we can see that he has access to a defined list of employees here on the right-hand side. Now let's say that Jack is going to be going on a long vacation and we need to find somebody to fill in for him while he's away. All we need to do is click on the Assign Alternative Manager icon. So we can pull up a list of all company employees and make our selection to the appropriate person. So let's say that Tom is going to be covering for Jack while he's out. Then we can select the appropriate effective dates and add that manager. So now Tom will have access to the same functions and employees that Jack has, but only for that date range that we've defined. So once that date expires, Tom will no longer have access to that information. Simple as that. We can now take a look at how the manager can run reports on the employees he manages. The first report that we will look at today is the Detailed Hours report. On the top of this screen, you'll notice a few filters, one of them being the Employees filter. This will allow you to sort by specific employees. Underneath that filter, you'll see the filter for the timesheet dates, where you can sort by a calendar range, date range, or pay period. You can also filter any report by the columns that are being displayed. So for example, if you knew a particular employee was having attendance problems, You could filter this report by their name. I'm going to go ahead and search for an employee by the name of Dave. And then you will notice the schedule icon here on the left-hand side. This is a graphical representation of Dave's scheduled time versus his actual time worked. The blue bar represents the scheduled time, while the red bar represents the actual time worked. This is an easy way for the manager to visualize attendance problems and take any necessary disciplinary steps. So I'm going to remove my filter for Dave. And now I want to show you how easy it is to customize this report to get it just the way that you want it. You can easily add columns by going to the Tools drop-down and selecting Columns. On the right-hand side are all of the columns that are currently being displayed within your report. And on the left-hand side are all of the available columns that you can report off of. I will use the search box here at the top of the screen to search for the column that I want to bring in. So let's say that we want to bring in the hourly rate. You can see that I've typed in the first couple of letters, and the column that I want to add has been pulled up for us. I can add it to the report by using my green arrows, and I can move it around to get it wherever I need it to be. And when I'm satisfied, I can go ahead and select my columns. Now we can see that the hourly pay has been brought into this report. Now there also is the ability to group by layers and hide columns. So the G stands for group, while the X stands for hide. So I'm going to group this report by the region. And so you can see each region is listed, and there's a subtotal for the total number of hours that were worked within that region, based on the time frame that you've defined up above. Now once you've set up the report the way that you need it to be, you can save those settings. Now every time you go into this report, it will appear in this format. And you can also export this report into 6 different formats. So let's take a look. We can export it in CSV, Excel, PDF, HTML, XML, and text. You do have the ability to customize any report in our system in the same way, and you can also set up each report to automatically be run and emailed to an inbox as an add-on feature. The next report I want to show you is the Detailed Hours Overview. This report will give you an overview for each employee's hours for a specified time frame. Each day or cell will allow you to drill down into that employee's timesheet for further review or to make any modifications. So when we click on that cell, we can see the timesheet for that employee that we've selected. Once we've finished reviewing the timesheet, the system is smart enough to bring us right back to the report. So if I scroll to the bottom of this report, we can see the total breakdown of the hours here on the left-hand side, as well as the time being broken down by cost centers that are being tracked by the company. So in this case, we're tracking departments and tasks. The last report that we will look at today is the time off calendar. This is a full year's view of the time off that has been taken or scheduled in the future. The days in yellow are the company-paid holidays, which are defined using the holiday tables for the company. The days with a blue hyperlink represent days in which people have taken off or are scheduled off in the future. So if you click on the hyperlink, you can bring up a mini report to see who those employees are. Now, like every other report in our system, there are filters on the top. So if you feel that somebody is abusing their time off privileges, you can filter this report by that person to view their time off patterns. Also, this report can be set up as a company-wide report that employees can access prior to submitting their time off requests. Now I would like to walk you through the time prep process, which is where the admin will go through the checks and balances to make sure that all of the data which has been collected on the timesheets are accurate and ready for payroll. So under the quick links, I will select Process and Export, and this screen brings you to a list of all of the open pay periods. Typically, you would only see 1 or 2. Today, we're going to process the weekly pay period by clicking on the Pay Period Functions icon. What we're looking at here is a dashboard type of screen that consists of the 6 basic steps needed to prep the time for payroll. We will simply walk through the checklist and complete each step. The first step is the pending time off requests. If you are using the time off request feature, it's important to make sure that all of the time off requests submitted by an employee has either been approved or rejected. The system will then check to see if there are any open time off requests and display this information through warnings or errors. In this case, there are none. So once we have completed this step, we can check the box, and this will let you know what the last step was that was completed. That way, if you happen to navigate away from this screen during the time prep process, checking these boxes will allow you to continue where you left off. Now let's move on to step 2, which is to review the timesheet status. This checks the status of all the timesheets. So for example, which timesheets are ready for payroll and which timesheets are still open. If there are any timesheets that are still open, that means the manager has not yet approved or rejected them. Kathy can go ahead and view all of the timesheets by clicking on the hyperlink, and she can see who is responsible for approving these timesheets by clicking on the Approvers link. So now Kathy can let the managers know that they need to review and approve the timesheets, or she can take matters into her own hands and approve them herself. So if we jump back to the previous screen, we'll be able to see the timesheets that I just approved. So you can see that there are 3 timesheets ready for payroll. Once all of the timesheets are in a status ready for payroll, we can move on to the third step, which is to process the records. Once this button is clicked, the system will group the data accordingly and get it ready for payroll. The system will look to see what the company determines is overtime or double time, or how the data is being sent to payroll. So is it going to be grouped by shift or by department? The next step is to review the results. This step will allow you to get an overview of the calculated hours prior to exporting the information to payroll, and will also display any errors such as any missing punches that may have slipped through the cracks. The next step is to create the payroll interface file. This step will create a file formatted with the data for that particular pay period that you're processing, and then it will be ready to send to payroll. And the final step is to lock the pay period, which will just prevent any further modification from being made to this particular pay period. Before we finish up, I'd like to share with you why businesses like yours are typically looking for a time and labor management application. They're normally trying to either control labor costs, minimize compliance risk, improve productivity, drive operational efficiency, or simply foster continuous improvement of their business. We're able to help businesses achieve these goals by providing them with a solution to assist them with saving on manual labor expenses, eliminating administrative waste, remaining compliant and avoiding lawsuits and settlements, reducing absenteeism, streamlining and reducing turnover, reducing overtime, standardizing and controlling company expansion, empowering managers and employees with self-service functionality, and finding growth opportunities through big data. The world is rapidly changing, and the competitive landscape in every industry is continuing to change with it. So we provide the technology to help you access this platform at any time, from anywhere, on virtually any device. Don't let your technology and systems hold you back anymore. We'll show you how you can manage your workforce in one simple way, on a cloud-based time and labor management application that has been proven across the spectrum of small to mid-sized businesses ranging from just a few to a few thousand employees. And it won't take you long to get up and running because there is no installation, maintenance, or IT resources required. It's time to open your door to your workforce's potential, and we can help. Thank you for your time, and please contact us today to learn more.